Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off bidding the Xbox 360 Marketplace a final farewell. Yes, the Xbox 360 Marketplace closes today. This one has had a very good run and some very good sales in the last few months now, and I'm wondering how long this is going to remain up to download DLC and also re-download games people have already purchased. Microsoft has said that's not going anywhere, but I don't know how long that's going to be. Maybe for a year, maybe for a couple of years, who knows? But all I know is digital storefronts generally are not the best for preservation. Now, if you've purchased anything from the Xbox 360 Marketplace over the last few months and taken advantage of the steep discounts, let me know what you picked up in the comments below. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Nintendo DS emulation with NooDS. NooDS just got a brand new update. Now, NooDS is currently work in progress, but they've implemented an action replay cheat backend, and they've also added separate folder settings for saves, states, and cheats, and also a whole bunch of fixes. NooDS is on a rolling release schedule. It gets updated quite frequently. The developer is very active, and they're making improvements on this in leaps and bounds. NooDS is 100% free, it's open source, and if you are curious about it, I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and feel free to check it out. And let me know your thoughts on how it stacks up against some bigger DS emulators out there. Next up, we're talking about F-Zero on the Game Boy. Kind of. This is more of a spiritual successor, just a spiritual adaptation of F-Zero for the Game Boy. Nintendo never officially made F-Zero on the Game Boy, and this person made G-Zero for the Game Boy. I mean, we've talked about this one in previous videos, and now I've got some even better news for you. The same developer has just released a brand new version of the game, G-Zero World GP, and you can play it right in your browser. G-Zero World GP is basically an enhanced version of G-Zero. It's compatible with the Game Boy Color, it's compatible with Game Boy emulators, and like I said, you can play it in your browser. This one is 100% free over on itch.io. In my opinion, G-Zero World GP looks absolutely fantastic, and I wish Nintendo made F-Zero for the Game Boy Color, but I guess we've got the next best thing. And on itch.io, it is free to download, but you can also name your price to help support the developer. And speaking about new stuff based on old stuff, next up we're talking about RetroFlow, which is coming out for the PlayStation Vita. This is a modded version of the HexFlow launcher, a 3D-like cover flow launcher for the PS Vita. For those who may not be aware, HexFlow launcher is 100% free and open source, and the last release was version 0.5, which came out back in 2020. Anyways, here RetroFlow was released back in 2021 and has just gotten a brand new update. So RetroFlow Launcher version 7.0.0 released back on April 14th, and then there was a bug fix for April 15th and one on April 23rd. And now we've got another one here, version 7.0.3, with some even more fixes. RetroFlow supports a ton of different systems. It's 100% free, it's open source, and like everything I talk about in pretty much every single video, the link is in the description below, and feel free to check it out if you wanted to learn more about it. Next up, this may or may not be true. It's currently a big rumor that's taking the internet by storm, or at least Starfield fans by storm. It appears the next DLC may be called Starborn, as Bethesda has just launched a trademark for it. In an interview on YouTube with Mr. Matty Plays, Todd Howard explains that he wants to make story updates for Starfield on an annual basis, so this may fit that bill exactly. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's going to happen? Or do you think this is for something completely different? Next up, VGC has identified something here that's very interesting. Apparently, Paris 2024 is the first Summer Olympics in 30 years to have no console video game. I'll drop a link to the article in the description below. Now, I don't want to say I'm surprised by this one, and I don't want to say it's also not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing here. I mean, there have been some bad Olympic Games over the years, but at the same time, I think this is indicative of exactly what's going on in the video games industry right now. I mean, companies are downsizing, they're letting staff go, they're really tightening their wallets, I guess, in terms of development. And with Olympic Games, I mean, some of them have been put together very quickly, and the end product really isn't worth the effort they put in. I mean, the article has a very interesting quote. Sports games are extremely time-sensitive products that are only bought at the start of the sporting season. With Olympic video games, it's even worse. The publisher only has a 2-month window every 4 years during which it can hope to sell it. So check out this article and let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Do you think not having an Olympic video game this year is fitting due to the current state of the industry? Or do you think it's a big miss and were you hoping for a Paris 2024 Olympic game? But moving on, and next up we're talking about Linux. And if you're a fan of Linux and fan of Debian-based operating systems, you may be a fan of Vanilla OS. Vanilla OS just released version 2.0 Orchid. So it appears that Orchid was over a year in development, and they say it redefined simplicity and performance, providing a seamless and intuitive experience for everyone, regardless of whether you're a web surfer, gamer, developer, or designer. Vanilla OS is designed to be pretty simple to use. Now, if you've got a laptop with a discrete GPU, for example, an Intel CPU with an NVIDIA GPU, sometimes switching between the two, for example, using NVIDIA for graphics or using the integrated graphics with the Intel CPU can be a bit of a headache. Pop! OS and Linux Mint do a pretty good job of making this process easy. And Vanilla OS has introduced Prime Utility to make this process even easier. For example, if you're trying to save battery or just make your laptop quieter, you can select discrete GPU to turn off the NVIDIA GPU and just run integrated graphics with your Intel CPU. Or you can click On Demand to use a hybrid state where it uses the NVIDIA GPU when needed. Or you can click Integrated GPU if you just don't care about how much power you're consuming or how loud your laptop is and want to run that NVIDIA GPU all the time because you paid for it. From what I can see, Vanilla OS tries to be lightweight, but at the same time comes with a lot of good pre-installed stuff, like Retroid here, and they say you can install apps and packages with just a double click. Vanilla OS comes with Linux Kernel 6.9 and GNOME 46. And yes, it's 100% free and open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and feel free to check it out if you wanted to learn more about it. And continuing to talk about Linux, and this is a real quick one, and just a heads up. If you like to be on the cutting edge of things, Linux Kernel 6.11 Release Candidate 1 has just been dropped. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the announcement in the description below, and feel free to check it out. Like pretty much every single Linux kernel out there, the newer one adds more support for hardware, better driver support, and even more. Next up, if you've got a Samsung smartphone and you've been noticing some changes to apps, especially if you use their default Samsung apps, it's because they're rolling out some updates here ahead of their One UI 7 rollout. Now, from my understanding, the One UI 7 beta program starts today, which would mean we're going to see the One UI 7 official rollout sometime soon within the next few months. I could be wrong though. Anyways, for what's changed so far, I guess it's just the clock app and the internet app. Nothing overly significant, but if you like to be on the cutting edge of things, I guess, and use Samsung stock apps, well, there you go. And speaking about smartphone stuff, next up we're talking about HUAWEI. Now, the HUAWEI Nova Flip is apparently going to be announced here in August, a brand new low-cost flip phone. Now, unfortunately, I don't know the specs or the cost of this thing, and I'm not really the biggest fan of HUAWEI, but if you are, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Moving on, and we're shifting from Android to iOS and talking about Folium, a multi-system emulator on the App Store that's going for about $5 overall. And the developer of this one has shared some insights. So Antique, the developer of Folium and the person also behind Sudachi, says Apple is making bank off Folium. Total sales right now are $186,000. Now, unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot about the whole App Store pay structure, but from my understanding, Apple takes at least a 30% cut on top of whatever other fees there are. So yeah, Apple is taking a big chunk of change home from Emulation. And last up here, we're quickly talking about Retroid. And Retroid has unveiled their Retroid official dock, which I think goes on sale next week. This dock is being priced at about $30, and obviously it can charge your device. It's got HDMI output up to 4K 60. Gigabit LAN, 2 USB 3.0 ports, and 2 USB 2.0 ports. Now, I've got no idea if this dock is going to be compatible with other devices or limited to just Retroid. And they do say the HDMI output function is only compatible with the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.